Hey folks, how's everybody doing out there? Creepy Kentuckian here with you. Doing this video on a webcam because it's something that, when I get a thought in my mind about wrestling, I can't really talk to a whole lot of people about it, that really get it. So I thought I would talk to you guys. This will be the first retro wrestling ramble video, I guess, because I'm going to be rambling a little bit here, but hopefully you guys will understand what I'm getting at. And it's one of those what if theories. What I'm talking about today, and actually went through some of my old VHS tapes and came across a couple, and any of you fans of ECW will remember these. Extreme Championship Wrestling. These were, unlike WWF or WCW at the time, that had the glossy boxes and stuff like that. These right here were the official ECW videos. They were in these cases, and sometimes I would write on the side of them so I knew what they were, And it got me thinking, because earlier tonight was a Impact Wrestling pay-per-view, or if you want to still call it TNA. And TNA has been around for 9 years. And ECW has been gone for 10 years. A little over 10 years, actually. 10 and a half, I guess. And I was recently watching Guilty as Charged 2001, which was ECW's last pay-per-view. And and people were saying, ECW at the time, they were fledgling, and it's true. I mean, it ended up being their last pay-per-view show. I think they did a couple more house shows after Guilty as Charged. But there was one thing that I noticed, even though a lot of their stars were gone. You had Steve Corino coming in to Guilty as Charged 2001 as the ECW World Champion. You had guys like Chili Willy wrestling on the show. There's no offense to him, but But the one thing that I noticed about that show is it was still an awesome show. It was still an awesome pay-per-view. They still had people into the show. The crowd was going crazy. And then you go to a show tonight, which is TNA's 10th anniversary show, which is supposed to be one of the biggest shows of the year, Slammiversary. Nobody gave a shit about anything on that show. I mean, there were, from what I saw, I turned the show off 2 matches in. From what I heard, the Bully Ray and AJ Styles match was really good, but other than that, it was just a clusterfuck. It was a mess, like a lot of TNA shows. So what I'm getting at is, in my opinion, TNA, and they have had quality shows in the past. I mean, the peak years of TNA, like 2005, 2006, quality shows, no doubt. But, since in the last 2 or 3 years especially, that company has never, from what I understand, made money. They have, every year they have Millionaire, the Dixie Carter and her family and stuff supporting that company. And I think, I can't help but go back and think, what if, you turn back the clock to 1998. That was the year where a lot of, 97, 98, around that time period, where a lot of the ECW talent was being brought over to these larger promotions. What if you know, ECW had a backer, financial backer, um, similar to Dixie Carter. Even Dixie Carter, the Carter family, they got into wrestling a few years earlier, and instead of the whole TNA thing, which at one point in time TNA was something worth supporting, worth talking about. But man, it is so much like, they just need to make so many changes, and none of those is actually happening right now. And I don't know if they will happen. It just pisses me off that a company, and let's face facts here. This is another thing. It's bullshit too. TNA has been around longer than ECW. Now, and how many classic moments in ECW can we think of comparable to classic moments in TNA? It's just one of those things it's fucking unfair, because ECW was just a special promotion. It's a special time in wrestling. They never really, in my opinion, put on bad shows. Everybody that came to ECW, and I don't even talk about the hardcore stuff, man. Look at all the great shit that happened with Jerry Lynn, Rob Van Dam, those matches like that. You had Sabu and Taz back in the day in their matches. It's not necessarily all hardcore stuff, and that's what ECW, that's what, over the years, and the whole WWE, ECW bullshit. It's just one of those things, that I'd been to a handful of real ECW shows, and it's just unfair, that a company like TNA, who they don't deserve to be around, folks. Let's just go ahead and say it. Ever since like the last 2 years or so, it's just a joke. None of their angles go anywhere. The only decent matches you have are just, the AJ Styles stuff or whatever is usually it. And none of these guys are ever pushed. They have never built or created any characters in this company. The whole thing, the whole deal with TNA is, let's bring in guys that were in WWF or WCW in the 90s. It's pathetic, because ECW, they would make guys. Even though the WWF and WCW took a lot of their guys, they would make more and more stars, and people would buy it. Anyway, I didn't want to ramble on here too long, but just tell me what you guys think. I don't know how many hardcore ECW fans are still around that remember the classic ECW. I'm talking about Paul E. Dangerously's ECW. And it was a company that got me back into wrestling in a lot of ways too. And maybe I'll do some more ECW videos. It's just, it's a shame, because ECW did so much for the wrestling business. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you're full of shit. The Attitude Era, that's fucking ECW. But anyway, what are your thoughts? Does TNA, should they exist? I don't think they should. Just my thought. I want, for the wrestling business or the sports entertainment business, whatever you want to talk about, whatever you want to call it, there needs to be competition. But at the same time, there is no competition for WWE right now. And in 2001, number 2 and number 3 were both wiped out in a matter of a couple of months. And WCW, say what you want to about WCW, but at least they had the financial means to make or break themselves. ECW never had that. I think if ECW had what TNA has had for the last 6 or 7 years since Dixie Carter came along, the billionaire or millionaires or whatever they are, that ECW would still be around today. And the wrestling world would probably be a lot different right now. At any rate, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see you next time on the Retro Wrestling Channel. Yeah.